Welcome to the Scholars at Risk online training on planning for a transition. My name's Serena Rosenthal, and I'm a member of the SAR protection team. We developed this training series in 2015 as a way for us to engage with more scholars, individually and in group settings, to discuss ways to take advantage of academic visits and safety, discuss how to strengthen one's skills in academia in a new country, and discuss how to think ahead to future opportunities. We've been able to offer this training in person and are excited to be able to share this virtually as well, in large part so we can connect with and provide guidance to even more scholars. Over the years, we have heard many scholars ask questions like, what next? What do I do when my current post ends? How do I approach the job search process? And how can I work with SAR to do so? Of course, these are questions that all academics ask, but they hold more weight for those of you who have faced risk, whether that is for who you are or what you do. We know that the uncertainties around these questions are not easy, but we hope that this presentation can offer helpful guidance as you begin to explore your transition needs. Throughout this presentation, I will be discussing ways to consider your needs as you transition from a SAR academic visit or another placement in a safe location to a new academic opportunity. We have distilled our experience working with scholars and the advice we have given over the years into this training, but recognize that this is a mere starting point for each individual scholar's consideration of how to approach an academic transition. After this presentation, we encourage you to work closely with your main point of contact at SAR to discuss your transition needs in more detail, as well as to share feedback so we can better support all those within the SAR network. Finding a temporary academic visit in a safe location should be an exciting and positive experience, but we recognize that those positions end and want to take the time throughout this presentation to think about next steps and provide tips on intentional ways to approach transitions in academia. We hope that this will be helpful to you, whether you're currently in a position or currently seeking and exploring future academic opportunities. In particular, given that the positions arranged through the Scholars at Risk network are intended to be temporary visits of academic refuge, we want to encourage you to plan ahead and view your networks, including SAR, as resources to help with such planning. Through our work with SAR scholars and during this presentation, our goal is to help you minimize uncertainties and increase your chances for finding suitable new opportunities. Many scholars often wonder how to make a post-visit transition or a transition to a new opportunity as smooth as possible. Our first piece of advice would be to start planning early, generally at least 6 months before the end of your placement, and if possible, it would be best to start planning a year in advance. As you do so, we encourage you to be in touch with SAR staff and your personal network to discuss your thoughts and plans. That may be a helpful way to learn about opportunities or contacts and resources of interest. Furthermore, since every academic environment is slightly unique, you should take into account the academic timeline for the country where you are seeking, including considerations of when the academic year begins and when jobs are posted as a way to structure your planning. In our experience, when planning ahead, scholars with whom we work often take the following into consideration at this time: security, scholarship, family, legal status, and moving. I will discuss each item in more detail on the following slides, but we welcome additional thoughts on major considerations you or others weigh when making decisions about your academic and personal future. When considering security and safety, many scholars share that they first assess the situation in their home country. They ask questions such as, has the situation changed since I left, and in what way? Many scholars then discuss their options with family and colleagues to gather as many perspectives as possible, and ultimately they ask themselves, is returning home a safe option? When thinking about next steps for one's academic future, many scholars consider where they can contribute their academic expertise, both geographically and institutionally, and how. For example, do you think you are best suited to contribute your knowledge from your current host country, your home country, or a different country altogether? Further, and in that vein, many question where they might have a feasible opportunity to continue their work and find suitable jobs or fellowships. After considering location and institutional options for your future academic work, you should also begin to think about what you need to do in order to successfully seek new opportunities. In particular, it is important to think about who can serve as a reference to help demonstrate what you can contribute to a new academic environment. Whether you traveled with your family, they stayed in your home country, or you are still in the process of exploring options to move abroad, it's important to talk through this decision with your relatives to consider how the next steps affect everyone involved. For example, scholars with children often consider their schooling needs in tandem with personal academic goals. Scholars with spouses may want to consider the types of academic and educational opportunities available for their spouses in a given country. And at times, scholars must consider immigration standards in new countries to determine whether moving with a family is feasible. You may find that you have many other questions and scenarios to discuss, but hopefully this will provide a starting point for those conversations. For many scholars we work with, legal status is generally tied to an academic position. If you cannot return home now or at the end of your placement, this would be the time to consider whether you can change your visa to a different status that is not employer dependent, to another longer-term legal status such as permanent residency or asylum, or another employer-dependent visa here or abroad upon receipt of a new position. It is always important for you to be aware of and knowledgeable about your legal status and the rights that entails. Of course, SAR is more than happy to discuss this with you, as well as work with you to identify helpful local immigration resources when necessary. You may also want to consider whether you and your family are prepared to move, and if so, where. Such considerations would likely include: are there available job opportunities in a new location? What would it entail to acquire a new visa? Are there linguistic benefits or challenges to moving? What are the basic logistics of moving and integrating into a new community? These are among many other questions that SAR staff would be happy to discuss with you at the time of making such a decision. After taking these considerations into account, the question remains: do you return home, seek continued opportunities at your current place of residence or employment, or move on to a new location altogether? Throughout the rest of this presentation, I will take some time to provide guidance on all three scenarios, as each scholar experience and circumstance is unique. If you have determined that it is safe to return home, perhaps after a change in political or personal circumstances, there are many things to consider. In particular, we recommend considering how to make good use of the time left at your university, how to use your experience to excel in academia in your home country, and how to maintain your personal security upon return. Once you have determined that you will be returning home, it is still important to contribute to your academic environment and to foster your network. We recommend continuing to develop relationships with new contacts and close colleagues, in large part because they can serve as future research collaborators, academic references, and peer reviewers. And on a more personal level, these contacts could be helpful if you experience any unexpected challenges upon returning home. Before returning, if you're planning on re-entering academia, you should explore employment opportunities and attempt to secure a position in advance. If you have retained an academic title at home through sabbatical or unpaid leave, this may be a simpler route. However, if you're seeking new job opportunities, it may be helpful to ask references to write a letter explaining the work that you've been doing as a helpful description of your activities while abroad. You may also want to seek guidance on updating your academic materials according to the academic standards of your home country. That way you can adapt to the standards in your country while also highlighting your important work experience while abroad. When planning to return home, even if you have determined it is safe, we always find it advisable to consider what security needs you may have. In certain instances, it can be helpful to have a secure email account, secure cell phone, and secure transportation. Also, we advise sharing contact information with SAR staff, close contacts, and academic connections. Prior to traveling, we suggest setting up a date to speak with us and/or a trusted contact in your network once you have arrived. That way you can share developments, hopefully positive ones, as well as any unexpected developments. Additionally, while some scholars who choose to return home do so without trouble, it is wise to prepare a backup plan. When preparing your backup plan, it can be helpful to consider whether you can quickly obtain a tourist visa elsewhere, or if you have family in another country, among other solutions, in case you do experience challenges upon return. We recommend that you provide SAR and trusted contacts in your network with an updated CV, contact information, and your preferred mode of communication, so those in safe locations can provide assistance when necessary. In general, this is a reminder to stay in touch with academic contacts and others in your network for guidance on a safe return, for backup plans for your safety and career, and for continued academic collaboration. If you determine that it is safer to stay outside of your country, you can consider whether it's possible to seek new opportunities in your current location, or whether you should explore moving on to a different university, city, or country. I will discuss these two options in the following slides, including advice on how to best work with SAR and explore external resources to bolster your academic career abroad. If you are interested in remaining at your current university, it is important to express that clearly and as soon as possible, in order to best understand whether remaining at your university is an option. In most cases, SAR host institutes are unable to renew temporary visits through our network, in large part due to the fact that SAR posts are intended to be short-term and temporary. However, there are times when a university is able to extend a position, depending on if there is space, funding, and/or interest. If it's possible to remain where you are, you would likely go through a similar logistical process as when you first took up your post. You would receive a new offer letter, apply for a visa extension, explore teaching needs and responsibilities, and consider your research goals. Personally, you may have to consider housing, schooling for children if you move locally, extending your leave from your home country university, and more. If you would like to stay, but your university cannot extend your position, you may want to see if you can apply for any open call positions at the university. If you do so, we also advise that you alert your existing contacts at the university so they are aware of your application. I will speak more on open call applications in a minute. If funding is a barrier, you may want to explore whether your university could host you if you have independent research funding, and then seek out suitable grant applications. It's always good to be prepared to think about such next steps, even if you have an extension lined up, since as you know, these opportunities are short-term. And whether you stay or move on, it is always advisable to seek guidance and feedback from your mentor, supervisor, colleagues, and students to be an even stronger researcher and/or instructor. They may be able to give helpful suggestions on teaching, research, and writing as you make an academic transition. If you are looking to find another hosting opportunity, SAR would be open to discussing next steps. We also recommend being in touch with your own academic contacts to understand what options may be available within your respective networks, including SAR and your personal contacts. When SAR works with scholars on identifying follow-up visits in the network, we have been most successful at doing so when a scholar is actively involved. As a result, we stress the importance of collaboration. For example, even though we are aware of when your SAR post ends, we ask that you reach out directly at least 6 months in advance if you're interested in seeking follow-up visits within the network. We also ask that you share updated materials and your current academic interests. If possible, we also find that scholars are generally most successful at quickly identifying opportunities for transition when they can be flexible in terms of geographic regions and types of opportunities. We also highly recommend that scholars continue to apply for open call positions concurrently with SAR's outreach. In helping us conduct outreach within the network, we request that you provide new materials and any new academic interests such as your CV, publications, new teaching syllabi, new references, and more. Additionally, we request that you share any updates on the situation in your country. If you have new academic contacts, that would be helpful to share, as they may be the link to new hosting opportunities, and depending on that relationship, SAR may be able to reach out. Additionally, we encourage you to approach your colleagues yourself, as they may know of suitable opportunities for you. Your network is a very strong resource that you should tap into. I should also note that while we are at times able to secure follow-up positions in the SAR network, we unfortunately can never make that guarantee. Furthermore, part of the reason that we encourage you to remain active in the job search is that SAR visits are not intended to be permanent. Rather, the network creates positions to offer threatened scholars short-term visits of academic refuge to continue one's work in safety and begin building a network in a new academic environment. That said, we are of course more than happy to be in touch to discuss your options and provide guidance, whether that's through placement assistance or in support of your independent efforts. Furthermore, while working with SAR, we encourage you to regularly consider your next steps and goals within the SAR network and more generally in academia. To elaborate on how our outreach works, I wanted to take this opportunity to explain in more detail how to identify opportunities within the SAR network. As you likely know, SAR has a network of over 500 universities in more than 35 countries. Some universities have established SAR hosting programs through which they have the capacity to invite different SAR scholars, generally on a yearly basis, whereas other universities are new to the network and may not have the capacity to invite a scholar for an academic visit just yet. In that vein, many university representatives will reach out to us at SAR to indicate when they are able to invite a scholar to their university. At times, they'll share that they're looking for a scholar from a specific discipline, region, or other considerations in order to facilitate a strong academic fit. And other times, they will invite information about any SAR scholar who is seeking assistance at the time. We would then share scholar profiles, which are anonymous descriptions of scholars' academic and risk backgrounds, for scholars who could be a strong fit. If a university is then interested in a scholar, they may request additional information or to speak with a scholar for a short interview. Alternatively, when we're working with a scholar who's seeking assistance urgently, we may reach out to the universities directly to determine whether any university has the capacity and academic fit to host a scholar at that time. In those instances, we often ask for your help identifying strong departments in your field within our network, and then we would reach out accordingly. As you can see, there are several avenues for identifying opportunities within the network, and it is always helpful to be as informed of your interests and availability so that we can keep you in mind for potential academic visits. Outside of SAR, there are many academic resources available to you as well. Notably, you may also be able to seek assistance at employment or career services centers on and off campus as a first step. Additional resources might include writing classes, language training courses likely geared at the country where you hope to work, job materials preparations at universities and career services centers, research funders, academic associations, and more. But as you can see, the people and resources we discussed in the Making the Most of Your Placement presentation can also be critical in making a smooth transition to a new opportunity. We believe that all these resources can help you with your current job performance as well as the strength of your independent job search. If you are applying for independent applications, as we suggest, we would like to offer a few tips. When applying for independent opportunities, the types of positions you may find can vary from researcher to adjunct to professor and more. We suggest that you apply broadly and for a variety of opportunity types to expand your options if you are able. We also recognize that while adjunct positions are usually not sufficient to live on, they still provide a good opportunity to remain engaged in academia and can often be paired with a non-academic job. A few points on the job search. In addition to exploring a variety of position types, we recommend that you actively apply to as many publicly posted jobs as possible. As you know, academia is competitive, and as such, it is advisable to broaden your search and efforts as much as possible. We encourage you to seek out strong reference letters from contacts who are respected in the field and from colleagues who know you and your work well. The quality of your references will also help bolster the strength of your applications. And it is incredibly important to tailor your materials for every job application. Employers want to see that you are specifically interested in the job for which they are advertising, and you can organize your materials to demonstrate that you have the necessary skills to both fulfill their requirements and exceed expectations. It takes time to constantly tailor your materials, but it is invaluable to your job search efforts. It may also be advisable to seek out research grants in order to see whether you can make affiliations or academic visits possible, especially where you have contacts interested in helping. Staying active and flexible with SAR and in your academic job search may afford you the most future opportunities. As you take this all into account, whether you're exploring new opportunities within the SAR network or applying for independent open call positions, it's important to remember that SAR positions and other academic opportunities in safety afford you the opportunity to continue your work in safety, and they also provide you the space to build your network, strengthen your academic credentials, and consider your goals for your future academic career and how to achieve them. We encourage you to take advantage of all of that in order to excel while you're in a post and prepare yourself for a transition. We have talked a lot about how to think about future opportunities during this presentation, but as a final step in your transition from one opportunity to the next, it is also important to consider the best ways to conclude a visit. When it comes to thinking about the end of a visit, we recognize this may be a time of excitement or uncertainty, depending on your next steps. Regardless, here are a few final tips for today. Thank your colleagues for their support and guidance. Ask for letters of recommendation and evaluations of your work. Contact those in your network who helped make this position possible, including SAR, to discuss your experience and share thoughts or ideas for the future. This will help us improve our work with you and other scholars in the future. We hope you know that you can reach out to SAR for advice and guidance at any point when you are considering your next steps. And whatever your next steps may be, maintaining strong connections will certainly help you grow your network and strengthen your role in academia. We hope these are helpful guidelines on the various considerations you may have for the future and may provide ideas on how to begin the thought process and action for your transition. When we conduct this training in person, we encourage scholars in attendance to turn and talk to one another about their personal experiences with academic transition. We then pose the following question: what are skills or strategies that you have used or seen others use to get through a difficult academic transition? We have heard a variety of responses, ranging from observing colleagues teach, working closely with faculty mentors on academic materials, participating in guest lectures and speaking events to widen the reach of one's work, and more. After concluding this presentation, we encourage you to think about this question and reach out to your main point of contact at SAR to discuss your thoughts further. Hopefully, this will lead to a fruitful conversation about your personal situation and options for your future. Thank you so much for participating in the Scholars at Risk online training on planning for a transition. I hope that the information provided throughout the presentation has been helpful to you as you consider your academic transition. I encourage you to reach out to your main point of contact at SAR to discuss any details about your personal transition in more depth, as we are eager to be as supportive as possible as you consider your next steps. Please also feel free to share feedback, as we are continually adapting this training to best address the needs of the scholars with whom we work. You can do so by reaching out to the contact information provided here, or by connecting with your main point of contact at SAR. We are always grateful for your input and for the opportunity to learn from you. Good luck, and we look forward to continuing our important work together.